Why does it even matter? Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. And before we get into this discussion, let me just say how excited I am to be joining you on a cruise in May 2020 aboard a Royal Caribbean ship headed for the Bahamas, 3 nights, and we are going to have an opportunity to stage Right Angle and Bill Whittle Now live on stage, and you'll get a chance to interact with us personally, and more importantly, you'll get a chance to meet your fellow members and find out just what kind of excellent people have become members at BillWhittle.com. But you don't have to be a member to take part in this cruise. All you have to do is go to BillWhittleCruise.com, and right at sort of the left side of the page, you'll see a picture of Bill, and it says Strato Cruise Bill Whittle. You click on that and get all the details. We'll put a link in the description below. But gentlemen, let's get right into it, because it struck me that for now, some 11 years, we have been talking about politics. And we've done this, anywhere from 5 to 10 times a week on these shows that we've been producing consistently all that time, the three of us. And it just occurred to me, guys, why do we care so much about this? And not just us. Why do the members and the viewers care so much about politics? And this is kind of a broad philosophical question, but it's really been on my mind lately, and I thought I'd give you guys a crack at it. Stephen Green, it would seem that you've got a busy enough life with your kids and your wife, and as a writer, and your wife is a writer, plus she has her other full-time job. You've got a lot going on in your life and loved ones surrounding you and pets to take care of. And yet you devote this substantial part, not just of your time and not just for compensation, but literally of your mind and your heart in a way to this enterprise of thinking about and talking about and sort of coalescing your ideas about politics. Why does it matter so much to you and to people like you?
Who was it? Was it John Adams that said he studied war so that his sons could study law and their sons could study the arts?
Philosophy. I think that was Ellen DeGeneres, but I'm not sure.
Whoever it was. I'm pretty sure it was one of the founders. I can't remember whom, and I know I simplified the quote down to its essence. It's a paraphrase. But I feel much that way. I study politics in the hopes that my sons won't have to. We've got this behemoth sitting on our shoulders. It's not supposed to be there. None of that stuff's in the Constitution. Well, hardly any of it. I want it gone. I want to live in a world where politics just doesn't matter that much. And if I can't have it for me, I don't see it happening in my lifetime, and it doesn't happen for my sons, maybe it can happen for my grandkids down the road. Nothing motivates me more than that, except for one other thing. It's a co-equal motivation, I guess. I've always been just a terrible joiner of things. Groucho's line about not wanting to join any club that would have him as a member. I don't even need the acceptance to get to the rejectance part. I'm terrible at it. And yet this thing that we've been doing at the previous network and now at BillWhittle.com was a joining moment from the instant the three of us met. I belonged to something. And I'm terrible at that, but here it was, and it was easy, and it was good, and it's fun. All three of those things all at the same time. And I hardly ever experienced that. And to be able to do that for 11 years is just outstanding. And then the second part of that is our members that are watching and commenting and interacting and all the rest. It's just amazing to be a part of something that is not just me, that is not just the three of us, but is this much bigger thing. It's 11 years old and it never stops being new.
Bill Whittle, you're the sort of name above the title in this enterprise, and it is really your passion that has driven the creation of this whole thing. You weren't always this way. You weren't always so engaged in politics. And I want to expand this, by the way, beyond just this particular enterprise. Just as people, why does this realm of politics even matter? And what do you think it is that drives so many, not just members, but people who watch this on YouTube and elsewhere that are not even watching us, but really care about this stuff? Why is it that something that is so remote from our everyday lives seems to captivate us in ways that that dominate our time in many ways, and also inflame our emotions, whether of exuberance or despair?
It's a really excellent question, Scotty. But I think you really almost answered it there in the question. The reason we're involved so passionately in politics is because we have such wonderful everyday lives. And everybody that I know who's on this team has a profound love of America. And that profound love of America is based almost every single time. Really, I can't think of an exception. With people who understand just how rare and precious this moment and this place in history is. We're watching paradise on earth as close as you're going to get. I understand there are problems in this country. I'm not an idiot, but no one has ever lived as well as we live in America in this year in 2019. And we are in a place now as a society and as a civilization where we are watching things getting worse. If we were living in the 40s or 50s even, you'd be watching things getting better. And I'd be on the side of the people saying, let's do some more because things are getting better, but they're not, they're getting worse. And so we have to stop it or slow it down or so on. The other thing that we have in common with our members is not just a love of America and uniqueness of America. We also have a pretty good understanding of history, and we have seen how civilization, just in general, just the word civilization, which means things like music and philosophy, medicine, all of those things that matter. We've seen that they are not the natural state of man, and they're certainly not immovable. They are something that has to be maintained and guarded and tended, and we're watching signs of that also starting to disappear. So the reason we're so passionate about politics is because, just like both of you, neither one of us were interested. None of us were interested in politics. We weren't interested in politics because we had wonderful lives, and it was only when the politics started to degrade the quality of those wonderful lives that we began to realize that our entire philosophy is, I just want to leave politics alone. But the problem is, politics doesn't leave you alone. If it did, we'd be out of this job and be much happier with a much happier country, although I don't think I'd be much happier. I love this job. But in any event, the day that we can stop is the day that this goes away, and it's not going to be happening anytime soon. So to answer your question, I think the reason we care so much about politics is because we care so little about politics. And we think we think we have such a low opinion of politics. And as politics gets injected into every single aspect of our lives, from sports to just there's no way to stop. Television shows, Star Wars, all of it. Yeah. As these people use politics to destroy what this country is and has been and can be, as we watch people using politics to destroy this, we have no choice but to use politics to defend it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have been involved in running for local political office, sometimes unsuccessfully, sometimes successfully. And before that point, I was not really engaged or involved at all. Had only done little more than vote and try to keep barely aware of what was going on so that I was at least somewhat competent to vote. But there's something that happens when you come to that moment in your life where you start to see this realm as something that's significant, as something that demands your attention. It's something that calls for your exertions. I made some notes to myself because it occurred to me that there was something in us, because it was not politics that attracted me. It wasn't elections that attracted me. What attracted me was the idea of good governance, of being able to somehow frame a civil society in a way that would maximize the potential for human happiness for every individual in it, or for as many individuals as possible. And so there's something deep, at least in me, and I'm sure in you as well, that actually craves good governance. And oddly enough, despite what Bill talked about of the history of bad governance in all of the world, we somehow think that it's possible. We think that it exists, perhaps as a platonic ideal suspended in the ether above, but we somehow think that we deserve it, that there is good governance, that it's possible that we could achieve it in this world, and somehow through human exertions, we could bring it to pass. Somehow our words could actually call it into existence, or we might be able to persuade enough of our fellows to be able to embrace these ideas so that better governance would come to pass and that people would be happier. I thought that this was a fascinating idea because, and here's when it hit me. A couple of Sundays ago, I was in church and we were singing. And this phrase came across in the song. It's a phrase that comes from the prophet Isaiah, I believe. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. And it struck me for the first time, after all these years of talking about governance and politics, I thought, we are talking about the coming Messiah, the man we now know as Jesus, the God-man. The government shall be upon his shoulders. And then it goes through a list of names that we will call this Messiah. And one of those is Prince of Peace. One of the phrases that Jesus used over and over again in his teachings was the kingdom of God. It's a kind of polity. It's a monarchy in this case, but it's the only monarchy that can exist in righteousness because the king is perfect. All human kings have failings. There is a recurring theme of sovereign grace in the Bible. And all of this, as we come to this season of Christmas, to consider that maybe there's a reason why in our hearts we think there should be good governance. Because maybe there is. Maybe it's not here yet. Maybe we'll have to wait a long time to see it. Maybe I'll have to have a heart attack in order to see it. And the kind of a heart attack where the line goes flat. And they say, well, guys, we did our best. But there is a kingdom of God where the ruler is righteous and the government is on the shoulders of someone who behaves with humility and grace and yet sovereign power. Maybe inside of each of us, there is that seed of knowledge, that understanding that this world was originally created to be that kind of world, not just a world of good people, but a world of good governance. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members for making this possible. We'll see you on that cruise in May of 2020, and Merry Christmas.